I was hired in 1988 to be the music librarian, which was to serve as the liaison between the libraries and the Department of Music, as it was then. In 2004, the library administrators put me in charge of the historical music recordings collection. I took over from Dr. Carl Miller, who'd been the curator up until that point. And then in 2016, the library put me in charge of the Fine Arts Library altogether. I think it's somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000 items. We do have now practically all the recordings from the Butler School of Music that are on, as we like to say, legacy media, whether they're digital or not. So we have institutional donations from within UT, the Butler School of Music. We have materials from KUT that they broadcast or that they put together back in the 70s and 80s, mostly on open reel tapes, some Longhorn Band materials. We have things from what was called Radio House, which was a recording body of the university that helped the music school with its own recordings back in the 40s and 50s, but also did other things. Large transcription discs, 16-inch discs that were typically played in cinemas that were sent out by the military and major broadcasters. We have various stand-up Victrolas and Edison 78 discs players. In addition to that, we have all the student recitals that are done for graduate recital purposes, so doctors and masters recitals. Those now are in the cloud somewhere. One format that we haven't talked about yet is piano rolls. And we got a whole bunch of those from a local collector to add to our existing holdings. But there is one piece of equipment that we don't have, and we do not have a player piano. If anybody has an operating player piano that they would like to donate to us, that would be a great thing to add to the collection so that we can actually demonstrate some of these rolls. Certainly, the music library and the fine arts library subsequently had made a point of collecting in popular music after the rock and roll course was established back in the 70s. And UT was one of the sort of pioneers in teaching that genre. So we had a pretty good collection of popular music on vinyl. Obviously, if you're only teaching rock and roll, you miss out on aspects of that or subgenres. So one of the other gaps in the collection was punk music, and a local musician who had been active in the punk scene, especially on the West Coast, died here in an unfortunate vehicle accident. And his family gave us his not particularly large, but wonderfully eclectic collection of vinyl, both LPs and singles and EPs. One of the smaller but more intriguing collections that we have is the Joseph Prager collection of the voices of cantors. And what's kind of striking is that the albums, they're 78 RPM recordings, and they're of Jewish cantors, but they are intermingled with those of recordings of opera and popular music stars of the time. You have, on the one hand, this profoundly religious genre, along with popular song and opera excerpts, arias, done by the most notable singers of their day, and the cantors, who are often, whose pictures have been pasted on the spines of the albums, are just as famous as these singers who traveled all over the world at that time. Probably the majority of the discs that we have here are not currently available online anywhere. Or if they are, they're made from second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth generation recordings, whereas we have the original. There are several different parts to the KUT collection. Generally, their tapes have got to us because they've run out of room. It's a story that is very common, and we love those stories because we can be the room for that stuff. I like to joke that they represent the output of third-rate garage bands from Ohio who seemed to think that KUT was going to be willing to play their stuff, and they probably weren't ever going to play it, but they sent them out anyway. But now, we have all of this music that many people have never heard of, and that's wonderful, because otherwise it'll just be completely lost. I think librarians and archivists, that's their general modus operandi, is to try and keep things around for as long as possible. Our mission is to try and preserve as much of the publicly available record or institutionally important record as possible. And that gives us both a great responsibility, but also a huge challenge, because these media are not particularly stable, particularly tape. There are, I'm sure, hidden gems, and it's lovely to think that we are able to move those along to future generations. You can't tell history without writing about the audio creativity of people.